This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. If you click on the link in the description below, it'll take you to their store and they'll know I sent you there. Hello everyone, I'm Nitsahone, and it's Wednesday, so that means it's time for another MTG Top 10, the series where I rank cards based on their historical performance and Magic's highest level of competition. In this episode, I'm looking at the Abzan Wedge. Abzan is the name assigned to the Khan that is made up of black, green, and white in Khans of Tarkir block, and it has gone on to be the name we use anytime there's a card or deck that is made up of those three colors. To be eligible for this list, a card had to have an Abzan color identity. This means that the card had to have all three Abzan colors somewhere on the card. In other words, a card had to have all three Abzan colors in its casting cost, or divided between its casting cost and the text box. I chose to exclude lands with the Abzan color identity because I thought they would make this video considerably less interesting. In the end, that means only 26 cards were eligible for this list. Impressively, 13 of those cards have at least 1 point at a premier level event. In other words, half of the Abzan cards ever printed have at least one Grand Prix or Pro Tour top 8, and that's pretty impressive. Before we get to the list, here's a quick reminder on how I score cards in these videos. A Pro Tour, Players Tour, Mythic Championship, as well as Legacy or Vintage Championship top 8 is worth 2 points, and a Grand Prix or Magic Fest top 8 is worth 1 point. At number 10, it is Teneb the Harvester. Teneb is part of a cycle of 3 colored dragons that are distributed between Plane Shift and Planar Chaos. All of them are 6 mana 6/6 flyers that give you the option of paying mana when you hit your opponent, and in exchange you get some type of effect. In the case of Teneb, this involves reanimating a creature, which is super powerful. Teneb saw play in the sideboard of a Wild Pair combo deck that top-8'd a Time Spiral block constructed Grand Prix, where it could be brought out of the sideboard against opponents who could disrupt the combo, which involved a bunch of slivers. Teneb gave you an alternate way to win and could also reanimate any fallen slivers you needed in order to combo off. Teneb's other 2 points came in the sideboard of an extended gift rock deck that top-8'd Pro Tour Valencia in 2007. The deck ran Living Wish, and Teneb was something you could wish for out of your sideboard in the late game. It could then slowly rebuild your board and get you the win. All of Teneb's points came in 2007, and future printings of cards with Abzan identities will certainly endanger it on this list. At number 9, it is Overgrown Estate, which has the exact same score as Teneb. I gave it the edge because Teneb was always a sideboard card, and Overgrown Estate was one for only one of its points. The estate may not look like much at first glance, but the ability to turn every land you have into 3 life whenever you want is a pretty powerful effect, one that makes it very hard for more aggressive decks to win. All of its points came in extended. 2 of them came in an Oath of Druids deck, which ran Enlightened Tutor. While the primary purpose of the tutor was to find the Oath, the deck also ran a few singleton toolbox cards, including Overgrown Estate, which you could grab if you needed to buy yourself a few turns to combo off. Its other point came in a Naya mid-range deck where it could come out of the sideboard against the popular Armageddon decks of the time, as it made sure you got value out of your lands before they got destroyed. Overgrown Estate gained all of its points back in 2001, so like Teneb, it is in danger of falling off of this list in the future. At number 8, it is Kenthis, the Hidden Hand, which is the newest card to make this list. Kenthis has a really neat design, and is a fun legendary payoff, lowering the cost of your legendary spells and allowing you to cast legendary cards from your graveyard. In Standard, Kenthis has been played in the eponymous Kenthis combo deck. The deck has lots of different ways to win with Kenthis' ability, but the most consistent generally involves Mox Amber and Diligent Excavator. These could be used together to mill your entire deck while also fueling Kenthis' ability, and eventually you start going after your opponent with the mill trigger. The legend rule makes it so you can just keep playing Moxen and sending them to the graveyard and then casting them, so yeah, you can just mill your opponent out. Alternatively, Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, can also win you the game with its static ability. Kenthis also has 1 point in a modern Urza combo deck, which is a graveyard-based artifact deck that runs both Mox Amber and Mox Opal, allowing it to do even sillier things with Kenthis. It seems likely that Kenthis accumulates more points going forward. Even though it is about to rotate, the fact it has points in Modern and is being played some in both Historic and Pioneer is a pretty good sign. At number 7, it is Dune Blast. While it is considerably more expensive than most Wrath effects, Dune Blast is super powerful because it lets you hold on to your best creature while nuking the rest of the board. This usually means that whatever creature you chose is going to be able to attack on the newly empty board, and it means that you will be miles ahead of your opponent, who just lost everything. It gained all 6 of its points in standard Abzan midrange and control decks. At number 6, it is Crime and Punishment, a split card that has an Abzan color identity as a result of the casting cost for each side. The Crime half gives you a decent reanimation effect, and the Punishment half lets you selectively blow stuff up on the board based on converted mana cost. Both sides of this are powerful in the right situation, and by having both sides, you increase the likelihood of getting to use one of these powerful but situational effects. It gained 4 points in Ravnica Block Constructed, with both Pro Tour top 8s coming in Abzan midrange decks. It also has 3 points from Extended, where it was played in Life from the Loam Dredge. It also has a single Modern Grand Prix top 8 in a Gift control deck, which mostly sought to reanimate stuff with Unburial Rights, but Crime and Punishment gave you the ability to also reanimate from your opponent's graveyard, which can be pretty sweet sometimes, and it could also wreck your opponent's board in the right situation. Crime and Punishment doesn't have any points since 2012. At number 5, it is Doron, the Siege Tower. On the plane of Lorwyn, the Abzan Shard is occupied by treefolk, like Doron here. Doron changes the rules of the game, and generally if you're playing him, your deck is going to be good at taking advantage of that, while your opponent is less likely to do that. Basically, he frequently upgrades your whole board while downgrading your opponent's, while also essentially being a 3-mana 5/5. In Block, Standard, Extended, and Modern, Doron had an entire archetype named for him. These decks often played a Treefolk Harbinger to find Doron when they needed him, and then when he came down, he made that Harbinger into a pretty scary creature. He also just so happens to make cards that are heavily played in green, like Tarmogoyf and Birds of Paradise, hit harder too. Doron hasn't gained any points since 2015. At number 4, it is Warden of the First Tree. The Warden is a nice little 1-drop because it can become larger and larger with various installment payments, easily being a 3/3 on turn 2, and becoming progressively scarier as the game goes on. It's a nice way to make sure that even if you are flooding out, you have somewhere to pump your mana. The whole time it was in Standard, it was an important card in the dominant Abzan decks, and that's where it got all of its points. Speaking of that dominant deck, get ready to see more cards from it as we move to the top 3 on this list. At number 3, it is Onofenza the Foremost. Onofenza gives you a whole lot for 3 mana. She's a 4/4, she puts counters on other tapped creatures when she attacks, and she just so happens to also hate on the graveyard, forcing creatures who die to go into exile instead of into the graveyard. Onofenza's points in Standard all came in various Abzan decks, as well as 4 color Collected Company. Imagine paying 4 mana for a Collected Company and getting Onofenza and another creature. Yeah, she was one of the best things you could hit with that powerful instant. She also has transitioned to Modern, where she's frequently played in human tribal decks. She doesn't have any points in 2020 just yet, but I have a feeling she'll increase her score before the year is out. At number 2, it is Abzan Charm, which, like all charms, is a modal card that gives you 3 separate options. Abzan Charm can let you exile large creatures, draw you a couple of cards, or put +1/+1 counters on your creature. So yeah, you won't always have a target to exile, and you won't always have creatures who want +1/+1 counters. When you can do either of those, it will feel pretty good though. But you can't always utilize those modes, so it's nice that it also comes with a fairly broad ability, one that draws you cards. This means Abzan Charm will pretty much always be useful. Abzan Charm was mostly played in standard Abzan decks, which it helped make into the most dominant deck of that standard format. It also has a single point in Modern from back in 2015. Despite its impressive score, it has been idle now since 2016. However, the cards behind it aren't especially close to it either, so its spot on this list is probably safe for a while. And at number 1, it is the very predictable Seadrino. I've mentioned that Warden of the First Tree, Onofenza, and Abzan Charm were key to making Abzan decks dominant in Standard, but Seadrino was certainly the card that pushed that deck all the way over the top. A 4-mana 4/5 with Trample that Lightning Helixes the opponent is very powerful, and that Enter the Battlefield ability means that, even if your opponent does manage to take it down, you're still getting value out of your Rhino because you're creating a 6-point life swing. He isn't that easy to kill either, as his size puts him out of range of a lot of removal. All of that power has meant that Seadrino's success hasn't been contained to standard. It also helped make Abzan decks a thing in Modern, while also gaining points in other decks in that format, like Junk and Birthing Pod. It also has 1 point in Pioneer, coming in a Niv Mizzet Reborn deck. Seadrino seems likely to hold on to its spot on this list for the foreseeable future. Well, that does it for this MTG Top 10. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and share it so that others can enjoy it too. If you want to make sure you catch future MTG Top 10s, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. And if you want to see the almost 300 MTG Top 10s I've already done, you should see the playlist on your screen now. Thanks for watching.